Welcome, friends, to episode 324 of Color of Magic, a Magic Gaming podcast where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I am your host, PowrDragn, and for 324 episodes, still got my main man that I hope is getting ready for summer, Brian Sonic. How's it going, man?
I feel like summer started in February. What
Hey,
is the summer of which you speak?
you know what? It might for y'all. Like for us, we got our first couple of, I would say, sunny days. I can't even say they're hot weather days because they're not. I think our peak so far has been like 65 degrees. So I'm like, man, it's crazy different across the country right now. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about this week, dude. There's some stuff with Fortnite, there's some stuff with Magic, some secret layer issues, some crazy things with YouTube. We got a lot to talk about. But before we get into all that, we do want to remind everybody if you would want to support the show, we'd really appreciate it if you go over and check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/color of magic. And you can get a shout out just like Reuben Brinkman. So thank you for being a patron. We really, really appreciate you. And if you want to save yourself some money on Magic cards, not even save yourself money, just get money for shopping for Magic cards. You can go over to our sponsor. It's manapool.com/promo/color of magic. Literally, you will get $5. You can take like the 30 seconds to a minute to set up your account. You get $5 added to your account to spend on whatever you want on their website. And you can shop around, look for sealed product, individual cards, whatever. And just about everything is over there. So go give them a look. Get yourself some free money. It's manapool.com/promo/color of magic. But all right, we talked about how there were issues again with Secret Lair recently with sets selling out in like under 30 minutes or whatever it was. Well, we got a statement from Wizards of the Coast, and particularly, I guess, the Secret Lair team this past week. And they basically said, this is going to continue for a minute because they can't really print stuff the way they want right now. They've mentioned printing issues, you know, their schedule is just backed up. Some stuff is already pre-printed that will ship quickly. Some stuff is going to have to be printed after they get the orders. So I don't know what the good solution is here for them other than, I mean, you can't, I mean, I guess you could just make less secret layers. So it's less of a problem.
And they're not doing that.
Yeah, I think that's the only real thing, right? Because you can't not make the larger sets right now, right? Like we've seen over the last 3 years, the three best selling Magic sets of all time, and they're not in universe sets, and those sets need you to print a lot of product, right? And we have still this year, Marvel superheroes, The Hobbit, and Star Trek that's got to come, and I'm sure all those are going to have large printings.
One
So
of which
there's
supposedly is going to be the new number one best-selling set, according to people
yeah,
inside Wizards.
maybe, right? So I don't know how you get out of this problem. Like I even talked about it. Like I printed, submitted a solution on my channel. And we talked about stuff, but even that, I don't think they would be capable. What was that word? Capable of doing. Even, I mean, at
They're
least not.
definitely not capable.
Yeah, not for several months at least. I think even by their own statements, it's going to take them a few months to kind of get out of this situation. And I will say, good on them for communicating this, though, to be fair, of just saying, like, hey, we're just setting expectations of here's the reality of our situation, right? So just know there's going to continue to be problems for a minute, and there's no real way around it. Now, maybe by late summer, some of those things get fixed or worked out or whatever. But at least for now, this is just going to be a thing. The other part of this, not everybody's going to see the announcement. Not everybody's going to see or listen to our show. There will be a number of people who get back in the queue next time, and something's going to sell out in an hour or less that they really want, and they'll be waiting in the queue for 45 minutes and not get their stuff, and they're going to be super mad. So it doesn't change that at all. And the only thing I would say, because some people went, oh, well, they're just doing this because it'll keep FOMO high and whatever. And I don't know how to keep telling people, like, FOMO only works if either you're moving up the price so you can maximize people paying you whatever because you have the super exclusive thing. For an example, look at rare shoe releases, the silly Supreme hoodies, whatever that's all out there that sells at, 100x of what it costs to produce it or whatever. So those are one way you can do it. The other is at some point you have to at least increase the number somewhat so you're able to take advantage of all these people trying to buy it, right? Otherwise, you just have a bunch of mad people who never get it. And because for FOMO to work, I, as an individual who goes shopping, has to feel like I'm part of the minority that didn't get the thing, right? I have to know enough people who did get it so that I go, man, it sucks being the one that's left out. When I don't know anybody who got it, we're just like, well, that sucked. We all waiting in the queue. We got in there an hour early, did all the things, and still didn't get it. This is trash, you know? So I don't really think it's a FOMO thing. And I got into a big discussion on Blue Sky this past week, and a bunch of people chimed in. While I do think that is a marketing tactic that can work, I don't think that's what's going on here. I think by their own admission, they would like to sell more. I think genuinely they know there's more money on the table, but they just can't, right? I mean, that's just where we're at. So I don't know, dude. How do you feel about this FOMO, or do you think it really is more of their issues? Because that's where I'm sitting.
Well, I think it's always been their issues. By at this point, their own admission. Even before it, but even before they admitted it, we saw the delays in people getting their product. So they can't ship anymore any faster. They just cannot do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they are at max capacity as far as printing secret layers. And here's the other thing too. We do also have to acknowledge that when sets sell really well, they also have to get back on the printers,
Yep.
right? Because let's say Avatar was their third best selling Magic set of all time, right? You don't want to not have Avatar be there coming out of the holidays when your retailers are going like, "Hey, we need more stuff to sell."
Right.
Like you want that to be there for those 3-4 weeks till Lorwyn hits or whatever. So something's got to get bumped, and if something's going to get bumped, it's probably going to be something like a secret layer, which is unfortunate. But when you're talking about the potential dollars, I get it. You know, it's tough decisions got to be made, I guess, in the course of business. But yeah, I think this is just going to be one of those things. It's not getting fixed anytime soon. I think we just have to
And
accept
again,
that.
until while product is sold out in 30 minutes, there is literally no incentive to try to change it.
Well, I mean, again, if something sells out in 30 minutes, how much could you have sold in an hour? Becomes part of it. But at least
But if the
Mhm.
literal next thing you print is going to sell, again, how many times have they had a new number one set? Well, this will, if the predictions from inside the house are true, this will be what the third straight year they have had the best selling set in the game's history.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you hit it again. So like I that much I understand. If your core sets, or yes, like not your core sets because they're technically Universes Beyond, but if your regular booster sets are selling that well, then it makes Secret Lair less of a priority.
And I mean, again, I think ridiculous hype for Reality Fracture, so it's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, exactly. We said it before in a previous show. Like, I don't know where the true weak link is this year, right? Turtles might have been the lightest thing, and that's probably because it's a smaller set.
Yeah.
That's and I'm using air quotes, the worst set of the year. And it's not even terrible.
Oh yeah, and just from a gameplay and thematic standpoint, set was done perfectly.
Yeah. So I think that's the issue, right? There's no point this year where they're gonna be able to, I guess, put the brakes on the printers to take care of Secret Layer without an immense amount of planning. And I know they have people that are capable and smart and whatever, and they're probably working toward issues to try to fix it. But they've at least said for the next couple months, things are just going to be what they are. And we just kind of got to live with it. Fortunately, I haven't gotten in the queue for the secret layer for a minute because I just don't. And hopefully, the people who really want stuff at least get a chance at getting it. But it's going to be a pretty rough time. But that aside, let's hop into the soapbox because, man, I have a thing I want to complain about. And that rabble rousing is about what I feel like right now. But and I have discussed it with a couple of other creators. This is becoming a pretty prevalent thing these days because of a lot of stuff in the world. And I'll acknowledge a lot of people are probably not happy with the state of things in general. Some people are probably not doing well themselves, whether that's physically or mentally. And they're just looking for something to lash out at. They're looking to just make other people upset so they're not upset alone. Misery loves company, all that good stuff. But there's been an increase in tomfoolery, if you will, in the comments and in a few different YouTube channels. Now, most of it's been pretty good about just finding them, reporting them, and blocking the people from the channels. But I'm going to use myself as an example because even though I've talked with other, I don't want to. I never want to put anybody else under the bus that I haven't asked specifically if I could talk about their stuff. So if you don't like politics or political discussion, you might as well jump ship for the next 3-4 minutes because I've had people as recently as yesterday actually hop in my comments and say, "Oh, well, they just put this on a card so they could put some of that gay shit on there." And yeah, the language is going to be a little rough because these are just what people are posting, right? I've had people hop in and want to talk about how minorities, different ones, aren't around because they can't afford magic or whatever. People hopping in with negativity to trans discussions or whatever. And I started thinking, like, of all people, why are you even coming around my stuff? And I realized that's weirdly a compliment to me because what that means is I know how to code switch. I know how to present myself to different communities. I have had to do that with city officials. I've sat in boardrooms with people making millions. I've been in very many different spaces where I've had to adjust myself to those environments. And apparently, they got comfortable enough because they're like, oh, this is probably one of the ones that gets it. Like, nah, son, I'm telling you right now, on the show in front of everybody, like, you come in with that mess, you are absolutely getting reported and you're getting blocked. And most likely, no one's really going to see your comment because as soon as I get the notification, I deal with it. So I don't know, man. Like these people just coming in hot, like on some of these things. I'm like, bro, why would you roll in on one anybody's space, whether it's YouTube, a meeting, whatever, of some group or person, and just test one of the wildest statements and think that's going to be okay, right? That's already weird. But then why come into the space of somebody who openly looks like me and think I'm going to be okay with that? Like, and you might want to do your history because there's nothing we've ever said on the show, nothing I've ever put on my channel, nothing I've ever posted on socials. Hell, if you follow me on Facebook, I'm sure I'm on some government block list because I talk trash about the president all the time. So nothing should make you think that's going to be okay on any of my content. So I'm just putting that up front. Like, I've supported all those causes. I've donated to different things. I have friends that are in just about damn near every minority group or religion or whatever these days. So do not think that I'm going to hop in and tolerate that at all. All right. I think that's what I need to get out of my system. Because I saw that comment yesterday. I just went, okay, I gotta say something now. Like this is just getting ridiculous. And I'm sure people are gonna hear this and hate it and be like, ah, why are you bringing politics into our game? Hell, y'all brought the politics to me. I have video. I'm just talking about reviewing some Strixhaven cards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, y'all brought that stuff to me. So
Well, it's
damn
always been virtually impossible to cover gaming with that. How does one cover Call of Duty and not talk about politics?
for sure, right?
Or literally any game in which war is happening.
Exactly. That and we've said it on the show before, like as much as we would like to not discuss super heavy things all the time, they exist and they affect the games we play. Whether we're talking about tariffs for stuff, whether we're talking about how different people are being created or represented, like all of that stuff is out there. And just
God
like
knows I hate terror stories, but if when I had to tell you like, hey, this is why I don't have this review that I told you I was going to have last week. The game ain't out yet because they can't afford to ship it to anybody yet.
yeah, that is sad that that's happening to a few different people and different companies, I should say. But yeah, man, like and here let me also say this. If you're going to come at a creator, whether it's me or somebody else, flying in hot and say some crazy wild stuff, and then we say something back, You don't get to play the victim. You came in here starting that mess. Again, I was just talking about magic cards. Not once did I mention anything other than just like the functionality of the cards. If you come in with something crazy, damn right I get to say something crazy back. Because there's no chance, and just to watch people do that is so ridiculous. And I see it on TikTok, I see it on Facebook, I see it on Blue Sky. I don't really pay much attention to stuff on Twitter because I know it happens every conversation. But that's just a weird personality trait to have, to come in trying to poke and prod the bear, and then when the bear bites, you're like, "Oh god, I got bit by the bear. How is it possible that this bear bit me?" Like, that's so insane. It really is. But all right, I'm gonna get off that and let you have some time.
Yeah, this one is a little bit of weirdness from the Street Fighter Six community. Two Street Fighter characters, or go back a long way. Street Fighter characters Alex and Patricia have gotten married in one of the recent storylines, which is a little weird because everything we have been told previously is that these two characters were pretty much adoptive siblings and were basically raised together. Oh, by the way, they are biologically second cousins. Oh, and just adding yet another layer of squick. Apparently, there's a big enough age gap between the two to where Alex held Patricia when she was a baby. So yeah, this
Yeah.
storyline came out, and I would say everybody. I unfortunately can't say everybody. Let's say a lot of people looked at Capcom like, seriously, Capcom, WTF? Where are you going with this? And I mean,
See,
you would not think being on the anti-incest side would be a controversial stance in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but that's just that's the time we live in. I'm talking about all because again, almost all major gaming sites covered this story. The comments are so full of well, actually, on second cousin incest, it's downright frightening. I'm just
man, here's the thing for me. Like, first off, it really does give Luke and Leia vibes. Where I remember being younger and like, oh wait, they're kissing. Wait, they're brother and sister though. Like, didn't in the last movie, like there was some of that. So it sort of feels like that. Like, I don't know if the writers weren't aligned or what was happening, but it is also weird because
even with Star Wars, like it was obvious Lucas made that decision to make them siblings after he had already written the kiss. Here, these two I think have been related since Street Fighter 3. There was no reason to do this.
well, yeah, that's the other weird part, right? Because it's almost like they changed the backstory to make the marriage okay. Because my understanding is like, oh, they were raised by the same, like one of their step parents or something, and that was the whole thing. But then it's like, oh no, but they're actually cousins. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's now doubly weird.
Yeah.
And
And
then
in
we
terms of trying to make everything right, they just kind of threw a retcon on here. Like, yeah, all the stuff we wrote before, none of that happened. They weren't really raised together. Alex was kind of in and out, so yeah, it's fine now. It's still so you just undid all the stuff you said before. This is not making it fine.
the other thing that's weird too, from just a marketing standpoint, is Street Fighter has a pile of characters to pick from at this point.
Yeah,
You could have just had them date or marry one of the more legacy characters and just raise the status of one of your newer characters,
yeah.
right? Like that seems like that would have been super easy to do. So I don't
Or just
really even know
write
why that was a
some
choice.
or if you just want to tell a storyline about Patricia getting married, create another character that just happens to be at the end of her story mode, and have her second cousin slash adopted brother be there supporting the family and keep the relationship that's been established. There was just no real reason they had to be married.
Yeah, it's just a weird whole situation. Like again, you have plenty of characters to use. Why did you have to choose those
And
2?
I'm uncomfortable with how many people are like, I don't see what the problem is. Ugh. Why are y'all so concerned about fictional characters? The same people complaining, why are you so concerned about fictional characters? Are the same folks who are like, oh, there aren't any female space marines. Why are they doing this? And Warhammer says there are.
Oh, bruh,
It's Games Workshop's property.
we just got rumored there might be a Black Helen of Troy in the last 2
Right.
weeks, and people lost their mind. So, like, come on, man, what are we doing?
But in
Well,
this case, who cares about fictional characters? The fact that, second cousin incest is the hill you're willing to die on is just disconcerting.
yeah, see, that's the other thing for me too. Like, even if I disagree with a thing or a point, I also look at the argument and go, you know what? This ain't the one. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, even if I had that side of like we shouldn't be getting this bent out of shape over fictional characters, I ain't protecting the other side of this argument.
No, this is where you want to use your use your social media cred. Come on.
Yeah, that's not the space, man. It's just not.
And also, it's turned a great story, which for those of us that love the wrestling. Kenny Omega is a huge Street Fighter fan. He actually did the motion capture for Alex to the point there's some he will literally do some of Kenny Omega's moves in the game because he's such a huge fan that he's some of his actual moves he uses in the ring or have names like the V Trigger, the One Winged Angel. Kenny Omega is a huge video game nerd. Makes no bones about that. You've
Yeah,
taken what was a great story for Street Fighter, the fighting game community, and the video game, and yeah, you burned it up.
yeah, I would say even with that in mind, you could have made other decisions to raise the status of that character. That just going this route just made no sense. Even from just like a story perspective. Like I feel like there's just more you could have done with them at this stage. But
You took, the great story about Alex doing mocap for Kenny Omega, and just now if you search Alex and or Patricia, this is all you're going to see probably till possibly forever. Who knows?
oh, at least for the better part of this year, minimum.
I wouldn't be surprised if after they've screwed up like this, they remove one or both of these characters for the next game, so they just don't have to address it ever again.
Probably. And I have to admit that wouldn't be the craziest move at
Right?
this point. But all right, let's talk about some fun stuff that we learned this week because these are both kind of interesting. And this first one, I feel like I should have known. But I found out that largely for the majority of the series of the Zelda games, Princess Zelda has not been over 20 years old. With this latest one is the oldest we have seen her and Link apparently. And I don't know why it never crossed my mind that I just assumed, oh, she's a princess and now she rules a kingdom that I guess I just assumed she was 20 plus. But apparently she's not even old enough to drink, which is kind of a weird thing, but I guess just because the games have been around so long, I don't know, what do we have? 8 games in that series? It feels
Probably
like
more than that if you count all the Game Boy and
yeah, true.
DS games.
It just feels like
Now I'm curious.
the characters were older, and I never really thought much about it. I guess in the very beginning, I sort of
Plus, when they first started, we were little kids, so they were older than us. That's just all you
yeah,
care about when you're 8 or 10.
and I think they're just
Is she 20? Oh my God, she's so old.
yeah, but she's been I was gonna say the same age, but apparently now is 20 or whatever. And as far as I could tell, the only time we've seen an older depiction of the character technically is after she was in stasis fighting Ganon forever for like 100 years or whatever that was about. So like that's kind of it. And again, it's just one of those characters I never really even gave any real thought to, and just went, "Wow, I was just making assumptions this whole time." And I
There
guess
are
it's
there are 21 Zelda games, and that's just mainline. That's not counting all the weird spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors and things. So yeah, 21
yeah,
games,
hey, it's a profitable franchise.
right?
But yeah, I don't know. That's just one where I guess if you present your games a certain way or whatever, it just never comes up as a point of conversation. Because it's always been like, okay, captured, I'll do these things, I'll go rescue her, do this, whatever. And I guess now that we're starting to talk about making movies about the characters and whatever, like this type of stuff starts to come to the forefront because it's like, okay, what is the backstory to these characters? Like, how do they need to be depicted? What age of the actors should we be getting to portray them? And putting all that into perspective. But before that, yeah, really didn't know. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, anyway, you had something from a wrestling world. So what did you have?
Yeah, WWE 2K in the news because people don't really love the Battle Pass, and I mean, why would you? You pay, let's say, in some cases, $100 for a game. Then, hey, if you want to unlock all the characters you just paid for, now you got to grab this Battle Pass. One of the ways that content creators figured out to unlock Battle Pass stuff quickly was to take the weakest wrestler in the game, Eric Bischoff, and just beat the crap out of him over and over again. And it became such a big thing that actual real world Eric Bischoff weighed in on his podcast. It was like, hey, that's how over I am that 30 years after WCW went away, I am still in WWE 2K games. Yeah, awesome flex when you think about it. It is crazy that pretty much 30 years after the death of WCW, they are still putting this man in games and people are still enjoying beating the crap out of him.
Too, one thing I think is worth mentioning for people who don't really know is if you can make any type of serious impression in the wrestling world, especially in the WWE universe, like you can get one of those Legends contracts and have your name, likeness, whatever used for action figures, video games, whatever, and you can be collecting a decent check, not necessarily a huge check, but a decent check for a very long time. Right? There's a lot of people who were never world champs, barely a mid card regular, whatever, but they made enough of an impression that they're still out there and still get paid. So, credit where it's due, even for Eric Bischoff, who wasn't a superstar by any stretch, but was an important character for what he did for a decent stretch of time.
I mean, in
Mm.
terms of people being, over, he was one of the biggest. There were countless wrestlers that wished they were as over as Easy
Oh,
E was back in the day.
totally true. I
You
mean, he
love to
he
hate it.
tried to reprise that later, doing some TNA stuff and whatever, and it's wasn't that didn't work as well the second go round. But you know what? Make your money where you can, man. Even if it is just being in a game to get beat up a lot. You know what? I would still take that check.
Absolutely.
I'm sure some people take that as disrespect, but I'm like, nah, man. I would take that check in a heartbeat. But yeah, all right. Let's get to some quick hit things here. Quick note to everybody because it's coming up pretty quick is MagicCon Vegas is actually just over a month away at this point. So I did see a thing. Yeah, I did see
Dance
some
over here.
things mentioning ticket sales were going pretty quick. So something to check out. I know that the closest Marriott to the convention center didn't have any vacancies because I looked at that recently. So that one's at least booked up. And there's still some at the Westgate that is nearby, and also the Fountain Blue and the Renaissance, I believe, are the other two on the other sides of the convention center that actually still have spaces. For anybody who's looking to book, I've done some homework for you. Riftbound, though, made the news this past week because there have been some complaints from players, looking at some of the results of their top tier tournaments and such. And 7 cards got banned, which was to me kind of a surprise. But when I talked to some people who've been playing pretty actively, they're they don't seem too upset about these 7 cards hitting the list.
That's a pretty significant band hammer, especially for what's a relatively new game.
Yeah, yeah. And I sort of wondered how like it's an interesting thing, right? Because they did release the sets. The first, I believe, 4 or 5 sets got released in China first, and then are being released in the States till they get caught up. And then there'll be simultaneous release, is my understanding. And if you knew they could be potential problems, was it worth still printing them, or could we have released them later, or whatever the case is? But I guess they just wanted to mirror it and have all the cards available wherever the case is. But yeah, for anybody who needs the list, the cards are Called Shot, Fight or Flight, Scrap Heap, the actual character Draven Vanquisher, Dreaming Tree, the Battlefield, also two other battlefields, an Obelisk of Power and Reaver's Row. So kind of interesting, to see that many, but I don't necessarily take this as a total negative, right? I'm always in favor of a company saying, hey, we see where this is going. We see people aren't happy. We see the tournament results aren't diverse enough. Let's go ahead and take some action and do something about it before it gets too bad, right? Especially right now where you're just now starting to get product to be available for Riftbound that people might be trying to copy some of these big decks or come in and try to find something competitive. At least you're balancing it for this next wave of players. So I do appreciate that, honestly. I wish I've always said, even games I've gotten to be part of and help with or whatever, it's just I'm more pro banning than not banning because I think there's just more positive that comes out of it. But
Especially for a brand new game, you want to make sure people are having, because to some extent, everybody is a brand new player. So you want everybody, your new players, to have the best experience imaginable. And
yeah,
getting beat, before they've sat down to play isn't usually fun for anybody. Usually, even the person that's doing the stomping. It's just
yeah, that's part of it too. Especially if you are promoting, especially for Riftbound, right? Because they're doing all these large events and high cash tournaments and whatever. You want there to be some interest and some diversity, and especially because they also have a licensed product, even though they do own the license. People's favorite characters, right? They want to see them do better, and you want them to have a chance, right? And you want to show the balance of like, no, all your different champions are able to do their thing. So I get it, right? You kind of need to do this. Hopefully, this balances things out and everybody's happier for it.
and you
But we'll
already
see.
came into it with a lot of bad publicity because Legends of Runeterra just kind of got abruptly shut down. Like, hey, we're doing a new card game, and people are over there going, "Wait, you have a card game? WTF?"
Yeah, and I remember, I think even on the show we talked about it. Like I had people mad at me for how I was responding to them trying to get me to like, "Oh, have you tried Runeterra? What do you think about it?" or whatever. And then I would tell them and they'd be like, "Oh, you're not giving the game a fair chance," or "I don't know why you're not seeing this, this, and this." And then the game was shut down in the next year. And I was like, "Well, like I wasn't the only one that felt that way." But to be fair to them, Riftbound really is nothing like Runeterra. They play completely differently. The decks are built differently. The win conditions aren't the same. So it is a whole different exploration of a card game, which is very good. I just think the biggest problems, were availability. That was the biggest thing. Stuff was just sold out everywhere. Or if you did find it, the boxes were like, in some cases, up to $100 more than they were to just buy it regular. And then you have your second level of, okay, now we have to make sure everything's balanced. So as we are starting to meet the demand a little bit better, we need people to come into a fun environment.
Yeah,
And they seem to
and
be
really,
trying
I
to
think
take
the
care of
biggest
that.
problem with Runeterra was that there was not really a big way for Riot to monetize Legends of Runeterra, which wasn't a problem for the players; it's a problem for the company.
Sure. But it's also one of those things where games, and we've proven this over time, even if they're free to play, is either there's a structure that gets you to play more, so their servers are active with players, or a path to be able to buy something so you can just save the time. Runeterra really didn't have either. It was like you could play a small amount of time and get everything. And then everybody kind of went, okay, well, I'm sort of just waiting for more cards now. And then they quit playing, and then other people picked it up. And then, you have hardly anybody on the servers because they're all waiting for the next release or whatever. And like, that's just not a good experience, right? As much as players liked it, of like, well, I played Runeterra and I owned everything after like 2 months or whatever. That's great that you have everything, but that doesn't create new players in an environment. Whether we like it or not, like there's just some things that are better off with the current system, sadly. But that being said, Riftbound seems like it's still doing well. I saw people playing this past weekend at the Laughing Dragon experience, I think is what it's called, where they had a bunch of different events happening. So, you know, for struggling to get out of the gate as far as player acquisition because of product, they're still doing solid. And they seem to have a solid plan. So hopefully still around doing well, we're talking about it this time next year.
it goes back to the secret layer problem. FOMO really is an essential part of the economic model. The game in which you were able to
Sure,
get everything in 2 months wasn't able to sustain itself because
but
you
we
had everything in 2 months.
I will say we can also see enough people actively playing and talking about whatever on Riftbound, right? I still have a lot of friends that wanted a lot of the secret layers and haven't even been able to get them even secondhand. So it's a tough deal. Uh, a few people seem to have wanted us to just mention the Nvidia situation with their CEO and their DLSS stuff. I don't know how deep we can really dive into it, but it's mostly from the perspective of the video game designers having a big problem with it. And for those you don't know, the head of Nvidia was doing a conference and came out and said, "Well, gamers are wrong about DLSS." And anytime you tell gamers are wrong about something, you might as well just expect your notifications to blow up. And the whole community really went like, "Yeah, no, we're not wrong about this. We don't necessarily like it." And for those you don't know what it does, it basically uses a version of AI to hyper realize everything is the best way to describe it. It tried to make things a little more clean, more textured, make the shadows look a little sharper so it looks more like a real character. I think a lot of the argument from the designers has been, hey, what if we don't want our stuff to look like that? Right? One of them even said, I think was quoted as saying, I saw this and saw the discussion, and I was just glad I make 2D games. Like, which is sad, but they're just like, hey, sometimes we don't want them to look that way, right? Like we have designed these characters to have a specific look or style or whatever, and that's what we want. So I think this is more about, hey, AI doesn't need to touch all my art or all my games, right? It's okay for them to have a certain look and style. And I largely agree with that. Now, there's sometimes, again, if you're doing Call of Duty or something or whatever, and you're using real maps and real locations, and all right, cool. Maybe you want that to have more of a realistic look. But there's a lot of other games, it's like they're just stylized and they want a certain style or flavor or color grading or whatever. Let it be, man. I don't know. Like, I'm a fan of, hey, if we don't have to put stuff in that doesn't have to use the AI to touch everything up, I don't have to use as much energy at my house, especially right now with skyrocketing energy prices everywhere. Like, fantastic. And I just turned DLSS off. Like you don't have to have it on. But yeah, I don't really get the overall appeal of it. But I also don't play that many games that need super realism. So I don't know. Maybe your position's different than mine.
Oh, I wish they'd talk to the PR person before they before they make the hey, you're wrong about this speech, but it feels like so few of them ever actually do. Should
Yeah,
I say this thing? And it's almost always when it starts with hey, and not to say the gamers are never wrong. Certainly, we just talked about several incidences in which we feel like a bunch of gamers were wrong. But when you're the CEO and you're trying to shove essentially AI down people's throats, yeah, it's not probably not going to go well for you.
it's like the publicists would know that, but they're just making a statement not knowing the sandstorm they're going to create, right? It's
Which is insane. How do you not know? It just
dude, it's the Bill Gates like, well, I don't know, what's the banana cost? $5? Whatever. Like one of those things like they just don't touch it. They don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. They wouldn't know the difference. But yeah, let's talk about another story though that is sad, but might have somewhat of a decent resolution. And I say decent because it's not good, but better. But we did talk about the Fortnite layoffs last week, which I think it was like 1,000 people or something, like a big old number of releases that are coming. And in this first round of releases, one of the people who got released from Epic was a person who had brain cancer. And of course, that's devastating, right? Because they lose their insurance. They were obviously going through treatments and stuff to try to get rid of it and get better. And they said they explored all the different options. And anybody's lost their job, like here in the US, if you try to get like with like Cobra insurance or whatever, it's always like 4 or 5 times what you were paying before. Like it's crazy. So if you don't live in one of the few states in the US that have something to help you with healthcare, you just don't have an option a lot of the time. So this person didn't know what they were going to do. Obviously, social media found out about it. It went everywhere. And credit to the higher ups at Fortnite, or at Epic, I should say specifically. They did come out and say, "Hey, now whether true or not, they said we weren't aware that of the situation with this person. They said we do plan to reach out, make everything right with insurance. Obviously, because of HIPAA stuff, they can't talk about what they're doing for them or what their details of their situation are, which is fine. But we were talking about this in the pre-show. You're doing a thing where this person probably, well, we would like to hope that we can help cure their cancer. But brain cancer is a tough one. Even when people get it fixed, sometimes they're living with issues afterwards. But you kind of are the biggest game and company in your genre. You might just float them a bunch of money or just pay for some treatments. You don't really need to go through all this, but you could
This is
have.
another situation where HR and PR probably could have talked, or not could should have talked to each other. Say, hey, this we got to do something different here.
Yeah, because I do honestly believe that the C-suite folks potentially didn't know about this
Yeah,
person's
there's no
cancer
reason the CEO
diagnosis.
needs to know. No reason the CEO has to be talked to. Just again, somebody whoever was already probably taking care of whenever they're off for treatment. Say, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but can we talk to whoever is qualified to sign a check or do a thing or make sure this doesn't happen, basically.
Yeah, I would assume HR knows because that person probably had to get some special,
Yeah.
exceptions for
I'm
treatments or
sure they missed
something,
a
or
bunch of time off of work. And
yeah,
at that
maybe
point,
some
yeah, you're telling,
FMLA or
yeah.
something, something that
So
they
at
had
that
to
point,
talk to HR.
somebody in the company knows.
And then usually HR or payroll or whatever is usually connected, and they would have to know who is being released because they're also preparing paperwork and everything else. I would think somebody would say something and
Yeah,
be
and you
just
got to
like,
look at that list to make sure, hey, nobody has anything terminal going on because this is once it hits the news, this is a PR nightmare for your company. In addition to, by the way, just being effing cruel. Yeah,
yep. Now, the other side of that is once they found out, say, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and just, hey, we're just going to take care of their treatments.
yeah,
Or at least be like, hey, we're just going to give them this big pile of cash or whatever, right? Just look like the good guys and just say, hey, we're just going to do this to take care of this person. Now, the reality is they're probably, if I were guessing, going to do something where you're able to like keep them on payroll, but they don't necessarily come to work, but they're technically still employed, so they're able to get the insurance. It's probably going to be something like that, and probably cover their premium, so they don't have to worry about cost or whatever. But realistically, you could just take care of them. If they don't make it through the treatments, you could do a whole thing in the game and do a tribute. But there's a million things you could do to make this situation right, right? I so like I said, it's a decent solution. The person's at least going to get mostly taken care of and not have to worry about their insurance. But you could just take the whole process off their plate if you really wanted to. So I don't know. I
and
mean,
that may be what they end up doing. But I guess they said they're not because of HIPAA. They're not going to give us all the. And again, we don't need all the
yeah,
details.
we
We
don't even
just
deserve all the details,
yeah,
honestly.
we just want to make sure that he's taken care of.
But yeah, on that note, why don't you everybody where they can find you when you're not doing the show, Brian?
All right. You can see me at Uniquely Tish. I think Tish is in the kitchen right now cooking up some incredible Easter dinner. That's going to be great.
And you can find me at PowrDragn,
Oh, wait.
POWRDRAGN.
I had another one.
Sure, what you got? What you got?
You can also see me on YouTube at Age of Wagers. Over there doing, right now, I'm trying to beat the streak, which if anybody doesn't know, is if you could actually successfully pick 57 Major League Baseball hitters in a row that get a hit, you get $5.6 million.
That's insane.
Right?
Like that,
No
that
pressure.
that has to be like 1 in 1 billion or something.
Oh, it's never been done. It's literally they've been
Yeah.
doing this for 30 or 40 years. Nobody's ever successfully done it, but I figured it's worth a shot.
Yeah, might as well go for it. Yeah, I will be in Vegas, so if you wanna come out, say hi, take pictures, all that fun stuff, I will be there for that. Also, reviewing a bunch of stuff for Strixhaven right now, so hop over on the YouTube channel and go check that out. But as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome, and most importantly, especially right now, be awesome to each other.